Offshore, nearshore, local engineers, who should you hire? And, what's the right decision for your startup? If you make the wrong decision, it's going to be a really painful experience. So let's get into who is the right people to hire and what's the right development model. There's primarily three types of development models if you're looking to outsource your development. You have nearshore, you have offshore, and you have local. Now, the differences between the three are actually more than anything location based. When you're talking about offshore development, you're talking about development that's happening maybe across the world. When you're talking about nearshore, it's talking about maybe it's in the same time zone, in a still maybe a different continent, but you're still in the same side of the world at least. Local is talking about development that happens in your vicinity, okay? Maybe in the same city or maybe in the same state. Now, there is pros and cons to each of these, and it's really contextual to basically the time that we're living in. So let's get into it. So offshore development, that's been actually the most common thing for particularly businesses in the US for a long time, working outside to in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, as well as other countries like Nepal, Vietnam, otherwise. So there's a bunch of companies that are completely on the other side of the world that have been delivering for a long time to the US. And these companies are quite developed, multi-million dollar companies, or maybe dev shops that have started just very recently. So there's a wide spectrum to choose in the offshore side. The benefit of these offshore services is that the engineering institution, you could say, the culture, the engineers' experience in these areas have been going on for quite some time. Offshore development has been something that's been going on for the past 20 to actually even 40 years. And so they have quite some maturity if you find the right agencies. And particularly the engineers themselves have worked with remote teams and have a lot of comfortability delivering at a high quality to clients that are living across the world. That's why you're seeing a lot of the freelancers being from this part of the world, because there's just simply more time for that culture and community to have developed. The other pro has a lot to do with their communication. Another pro that has to do with it is cost. So when you look at these more South Asian countries or even East Asian countries, a lot of them still have a cost of living that's far below that what we experience in the US. And so that means that the cost of engineering is a lot less as well. So that makes it easier to work with them on a cost basis. However, the hardest thing about these offshore teams, and it's almost a stereotype now, which is dealing with communication and cultural barriers. This has been a big pain point, and primarily why a lot of people have now looked to nearshore development is having to do with the fact that they are operating in a very different culture, and the communication barriers can be very difficult as well. And so circumventing those communication barriers is going to be absolutely crucial in being able to work effectively. And so that's something you may have difficulties with. Now, there's certain agencies and certain teams that have gotten actually able to solve those problems and give you the best of all the worlds, but those agencies are usually hard to find. So now, should you consider nearshore? Well, hold on. There's a few things to consider there as well. One of the benefits of nearshore is that it's operating in the same time zone. And I'm talking about particularly LATAM for US-based startups. Basically, Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela, these are having engineers in the same time zone so they can work more effectively with your team. You don't have to get up really early or be staying up really late to communicate with them. So that's great. Another great benefit is usually what happens is in LATAM, the culture barrier is a little bit smaller. While there you may still experience language barriers and culture barriers, it's a little bit closer to the US Western culture, so it's easier to work with them and coordinate things. But the main gap, as far as I see it, I've talked with a bunch of LATAM firms as well as firms in across the world. And the issue is that LATAM is still developing its engineering expertise. The engineering institutions, while in India, Bangladesh, and other Asian countries have been there for decades and have produced world-class engineers and talents, LATAM is still way, way behind in its engineering ability. And so you may find that you may not get or as many experienced engineers, and to find those experienced engineers is more difficult. So particularly if you're dealing with very mature products, you have to consider that whether this engineering maturity is going to fit your needs. Finally, the last thing to consider is around whether you should hire local engineers. So engineers in the same city or in the same state if you're in the US. Now, the benefit of local engineers is that you have no doubt that you can communicate with them. Obviously, being able to get them on the same page and understanding might still be a challenge for certain people. Overall, from a cultural and language context, it should be like you're talking to someone that you know. But the issue is covering the costs, and particularly even sometimes the quality. Now, if you are spending a lot of money and you're getting really world-class engineers, that will ensure that you get the best quality of delivery. However, the challenge is covering that cost. Now, if the cost cannot be covered effectively, then you may have other issues in basically hiring the good quality engineers. So if you go much younger into the junior or even intern level engineers, while the communication barrier is overcome, handling very complex, mature projects may be difficult for that engineer. So that's the trade-off that you have to consider. So now let's make the decision. Which is the right model for you? You have to consider factors in your project like the complexity, the size, the budget that you have available, and your ability to work across multiple time zones and communicate effectively using tools. Basically, if you have a mature project but you don't have a large budget, then that means that offshore may be good for you if you can find the right team to outsource and communicate with. If you can find an offshore team that's willing to work within at least with a large overlap with your team, as well as have all the communication abilities that you should vet. If you have any issues, by the way, with the communication, you can look at the video here. If you can find an offshore team that can manage your outsourcing effectively, meaning they're able to communicate well, they have a large degree of overlap with your time zone, and able to handle the mature projects, I think that is a no-brainer in being able to work with them from a cost and impactability. However, if you have smaller budgets, but you need more MVP and you're doing a lot more ideation, then having nearshore development could work out for you. And finally, if you're having actually a decent budget, or in fact, if you can even find a technical co-founder that can help you build your product, then a local developer may be the right thing for you then. The main point is that it depends on your project. So if you need help figuring that out, shoot me a message or drop a comment, and I'm happy to provide some input and help you out there. If you're looking to hire engineers yourself, then here's a video linking about the questions that you can make sure you're doing the right thing. And as well, if you're trying to find the right agency model as well. If you're trying to find the right development model, drop a comment. And if you have your story to share, please do. And I'm happy to provide some input. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
If you don't want to miss the next videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you get notified of future uploads.